Hi everyone, hello and welcome to this session about 5 incorrect ways to use Microsoft Project standalone version. Our speaker for today is Eric Van Herk. You probably know him with all the tweets he does and all the noise he creates in the blogosphere. He's known for his blogs actually. The Project Corner blog is pretty famous enough for him to find a place on his slide deck. So, so that's how I came to know about him, and ever since we have been working on few things. You probably also know him. I heard him on the MS Project podcast, and this particular series about 5 incorrect ways has been featured very highly on Microsoft Project user group article list. So, with that, I'm very excited to hear from him. Whoever is awake on this side of the world and whoever is waking up on the other side of the world, pay attention. With that, Eric, over to you.
Well, thank you, Prasanna, for the introduction. A bit humbled again. So about this slide, yeah, the session is called 5 Incorrect Ways of Using Microsoft Project Standalone Version. We'll get to an introduction of myself and the topic later on, but let's start with thanking our sponsors. These guys are amazing. If you haven't visited the sponsors lobby yet, take a time after this session, of course, to have a look at them. I've worked with a couple of these companies and their software is amazing. Their services are great. And some of them even got incorporated into Microsoft lately. So Sensei, UMT. Let's move forward to a short introduction of myself. I've been working with the tools for about 6-7 years. I'm an employee at JSR in the Netherlands. And like Prasanna said, I also have a blog called The Project Corner. And if you want to get a hold of me after this session, I do tweet a lot, probably. I just send out my 1,000th tweet. I'm on LinkedIn, and you can send me an email on the Project Corner blog at outlook.com. So why are we here, and what are we going to do with this conference session? Well, you are probably here because you are using Microsoft Project, but you get frustrated because the tool doesn't fully react the way that you think it should. And I'm here to share 5 common issues that I see happening while people are using Microsoft Project and how to avoid issues like these. Just like Prasanna told us, this is a video conference session about a blog series I did in the early days of the Project Corner called 5 Incorrect Ways of Using Microsoft Project Standalone Version. And it got picked up by MPUG. And today I'm presenting my own vision on the series. So what are the 5 flaws that we see happening a lot? Flaw number 1 is called date-related planning. The second flaw is capacity as activity. Flaw number 3 is lack of structure. Number 4 is too much detail in the schedule. And number 5 is no way back, not using the baseline functionality. At the end of the session, I will have time to answer some questions and give some answers to your questions. And I will have some reference links that might be of interest to you after this session is done and you don't have any other sessions to follow, which sounds hard for me to believe because there's such great content out here. How I'm going to structure the rest of this session is I'm going to show a slide of the flaw. I'm going to give some background, and then I'm going to jump over to a demonstration file I have ready for you. And I will show what the session flaw looks like and what can be done to avoid it into the future. So it's 6 o'clock here. So if I start snoring, wake me up, Prasanna. I'm just going to get a sip of my coffee before we start and look at flaw number one. So, date-related planning. Some background: people tend to look at Microsoft Project as if it is Excel. Well, Excel is a different application. So the term, hey, this looks like Excel, see, it has cells, is actually something I hear quite often. And people tend to use every cell within Microsoft Project. But that moves your projects one task at a time. So what's wrong? Dynamic scheduling goes out of the window. There is no way for you to use or utilize the scheduling engine that Microsoft Project has. Therefore, you would be working way too many hours on Microsoft Project to get your schedule right instead of just managing that schedule. So how to fix this and how it should be done, use the predecessor column and the successor column rather than adding dates. So let's have a look at my demo file I have ready here. First, a short introduction to the demo file. This is in Microsoft Project 2016. Of course, the preview edition, it isn't fully launched yet. It has two sections. There is these are the flaws section, which is in the number one, and some advice on the flaws where I explain how it should be done. I also created some demo views. So I have the different views for the different flaws. Let's start with flaw number one, date-related planning. So the issue was with people seeing Microsoft Project equals Excel. Well, when people do this, they tend to fill in the start and the finish date manually. As soon as you do this, there will appear a small blue calendar. As a consultant, I visit a lot of companies and I tend to look at project schedules when they have them already. And most of the time, there's these blue calendars. So this calendar says start no earlier than the 20th of November. Well, that is something that the person himself, him or herself, filled in right about here. So let's see that happening with this task. The initiative phase, or the initiative task, starts on Monday the 26th. Yeah. If I change this and I change it to the 27th, we see a couple things happening. The summary task turns blue and the task itself turns blue, and we get a blue calendar here. Start no earlier than constrained on the 27th of October. It is today. Yeah. So on October the 27th, I need to start with this task. I cannot start earlier. But what happened now? Because now I have the definition phase starting 3 days early, because I have my task on Monday the 23rd to finish with the initiative. So when I do this and I need to move the rest of my schedule, I would need to enter these dates. Now, have a look at this scheduling wizard. It tells us you're entering a start date for definition that is close to the finish date of initiative. You can link them, or you can move the definition without adding a link. Well, even Microsoft Project is now telling you that the way that you're doing it isn't the correct way to do it. Let's have a look at what happens when I select link them will allow to follow initiative. I'll click on enter, and here we see a nice arrow showing that these two are linked. Also, the calendar that used to be here is now gone. So we don't have a constraint on the definition phase. When I change my duration for the first task, I will be able to see the definition change as well. So let's have a look at some advice on the flaws. Here we see the same schedule: initiative, definition, execution, and finalization. And the difference between those is that only the last task has a calendar. But there's also a note on that telling me why there is a calendar there. So I'm not telling you never use the constraint. I'm telling you that it is wise to use the constraints only with a note, because you're constraining your own schedule, and when you're not the only person looking into this schedule, you might want to add a note for people to know why it is going to be delayed. So about the predecessor column I was telling you about in the slide deck, there is a column, and you can right click on any of these bars and you can click on insert. And when you do this, you can insert the predecessor column. And these predecessor columns are linked to the first numbers here. It's called the ID field. And you can see that the definition phase, this task, is linked to number 3. Now there are a number of ways you can link tasks to each other. I can even have multiple tasks being linked to each other. I can select finalization of the first section, and I can tell it to be linked to the definition of the second one, which already has a link already in it. So how to do this? There is an easy way. We can do that on tasks, and we can do that by selecting the link, the selected tasks button in the center of the ribbon. And it tells me there's an issue. We'll just ignore that for now. So now we see that there are 2 tasks linking to the definition, and in the predecessor column it tells me that it is linked to task number 55 and number 6. Now if any of those 2 tasks switch or move with a bigger duration, this definition phase task will also switch. Let's have a look. And if I change this to 4 weeks or 8 weeks, there's nothing happening because it's within the bandwidth of Slack. But when I move it to 12 weeks, I will see definition, execution, and finalization move. So this saves you a huge amount of time. Instead of just entering every start and finish date on every task, just start linking it, and you will be able to have a dynamic schedule. So that's it for flaw number 1. Let's return to the all flaws view, and let's have a look at my presentation. I'm just going to grab another sip of my coffee to stay awake. Cold coffee, not too good to stay awake from. Okay, flaw number 2 is capacity as activity. Now when you're looking at Microsoft Project, you get the Gantt chart view. This is the first view that you see, and if you're not familiar with any of the other views, you might want to uh, have a closer look at that, because this isn't the only view for Microsoft Project. Microsoft Project has about 360 columns that are of interest, and these columns are um, shifted between task information, resource information, and assignment information. So, some background. This is the view I live in, therefore I will put everything I know right here. Well, that is wrong, because tasks and resources are two completely separate elements within Microsoft Project. So how to fix it and how it should be done? Use the resource sheet and assign resources to tasks. So let's have another look at the demo file, and I'll focus on flaw number 2. So capacity as activity used to be something I saw happening quite a lot. However, lately, I guess people started to know about the resource sheet more intently, because I haven't seen this flaw happening for over a year. Maybe you're still doing it, so listen up. Ooh. I'm going to write a business plan, and I have Eric, Will, and Mario doing the work. However, Eric needs to start the work, Will needs to be in the middle, and Mario needs to do something in writing a business plan at the end. Okay, but what is Mario doing? And what is Eric doing? And what will Will do? These are people. These aren't tasks. These are the people that are going to do the tasks. So they need to have an assignment within Microsoft Project, because Eric is doing this task, apparently, and he's doing it for 3 days. But writing a business plan and taking 3 days time and not having the plan finished, well, I'm not working on that business plan full time. Otherwise, I would have the plan ready already. And Will and Mario wouldn't be uh, in this schedule. So this is one of the views. This is a Gantt chart where we have tasks and we have a visualization of those tasks. There is another view, and we can visit that view using the resource tab and then the resource sheet. And when I click on it, I will see that I have a number of resources. I have Eric, Will, and Mario. These are work resources, so they have an amount of time available to work on this schedule. They have initials, and I can change that. I can change this to EVH, WJ, and let's maybe add another resource. That's not nice to do. I'll just call him Lex, and I'll give him a initial. I can even change max units, and that's not something to look into today. I see that it's the Dutch labels. The standard rate, it says here, maybe I want to be 100 euros. Maybe Lex is a bit more expensive. And I can even change my calendars. If I have a calendar such as a night shift, or if I am a machine and I can work 24 hours a day, I might be gray before the end of the week. And there is a whole number of extra fields available for you to look into. However, this is enough for setting up the resource sheet today. So returning to our flaw number 2, instead of entering the names of the resources, you might want to give a description of the task and you might want to add a resource to that task. So on the section some advice on the flaws, we have writing the business plan. Okay. And Eric is doing the preparation, Will is doing some additional research, and Mario is correcting and finalizing the document. That's good. Now I see my name, Will's name and Mario's name at the visualization part, and I can have a closer look at our assignments by looking into the view called Details. And we can switch to that view using the ribbon and clicking on the Details tab. This opens an interesting slide or an interesting window, and it tells me more information about that assignment, about that task. I have the preparation, its start date, its finish date, its duration, max units, fixed units, percentage of complete, and it tells me that I'm going to work 24 hours on that first task. Well, that sounds a bit much for a business plan. So I can change this and I can tell Eric to work in a fixed duration setting. So I want him to work for 3 days consecutively on the preparation, but he doesn't need to work 24 hours on this task. He just has 8 hours of research to do. So if I click on this, I have set it to fixed duration, so the duration won't change. And after that, I set it to work 8 hours. Now, on the additional research, I will see Will doing some work, also not full time. And on the last one, I see Mario working half of his time, 8 hours on a 2-day task, working on this schedule. So there's a number of things that we can do now. We can add a interesting column called work. Right click on any of the columns, click on insert column, and start typing work. We can even have a cost column. Awesome. So 4,800 euros, and you'll have a very cool business plan. I also see the exact number of hours people need to work on this. There's also an interesting column available called the remaining work. Remaining work. And if we set this preparation phase task to be 100% complete, we'll see that there isn't any remaining work left. We'll also have this nice indicator here telling us that this task is done. So wrapping up, rather than entering everything from a Gantt chart view, you might want to look into the other views as well. Microsoft Project has a separate set of columns available for resources and for tasks. And you can combine them using an assignment. Final thing I want to say about this is that you can change the assignment for Mario to be someone else. I can click on resources, assign resources, and I can click on Mario and I click replace, and I can have Lex do his work. I'll close it, and now Lex will do the correction and finalization of the document. More information for your team members, more information for your schedule. Let's return to our slide deck. Flaw number 3, lack of structure. lack of a WBS. WBS stands for work breakdown structure. If you're uh, living in the field, uh, you might be familiar with this term. If you're new, look into this because a work breakdown structure will make your life very easy. A lot easier at least. So some background, tasks, tasks, tasks. That's all we do. So what happens? People start entering their schedule and they forget about structure. They enter every task they want to do in the schedule, but they don't set any structure. They don't use summary tasks. They don't use milestones. So what's wrong? There's no structure, no way to communicate to others. Because as a project manager, as a scheduler, you're not an island. You need to communicate your schedule. So how to fix it and how it should be done, add summary tasks to relate to your work breakdown structure. Let's have a look. First, I'll move to the view. Flaw number 3, lack of structure. Now, what I did here is I picked a standard template for Microsoft Project. You can find them in File, uh, New, and I just picked a random big schedule here. And I deleted all of the summary tasks. So here is a list of tasks, which looks like a schedule, right? Well, let's indent that, or let's collapse that. Did you see anything that resembles a initiation phase or a preparation phase or an execution phase? Do you have any idea what was happening in that schedule? Probably not, because it's just a blur of tasks, nothing else. Strictly, yes, this is what you're going to do as a team member. This is what is going to happen. This is what is going to be done. But there is no heads or tails in this schedule. So what I would advise to do is I would like to add some structure. So here is the structure of the work breakdown of what is going to happen. Uh, First off, we have the initiation phase, and we have a project charter development, and we have a business case, project scope definition, high level, a planning phase, an execution phase. And this way we can finish up with the initiation phase just by collapsing it and start looking into the planning phase. So for communication, this is very useful. We can just zoom into the thing that we need to look into. So the planning phase is just these two tasks. There was no way we could look into the planning phase in our earlier schedule because we don't have any idea which tasks are in the planning phase. Maybe there are 10, maybe there are 2, maybe there are none. So another thing that is useful in setting up a work breakdown structure is you have the option of setting up a easy and nice timeline. Let's have a look. So when you set up your work breakdown structure, you have summary tasks, which are these tasks, these bold tasks. And these bold tasks have everything in it that summarizes all the tasks underneath them. So it's easy to see that the initiation phase will end on the 11th of January. So how do I set up a summary task and how will I add that to the timeline? I will show you in the error part. Let's say these 4 tasks are part of an initiation phase. I select them, I go to tasks and I go to add summary. And I can enter a date information, summary number 1. Now I can collapse them, and all those 4 tasks are hidden. I can also right click and I can click on add to timeline to show it in my nice presentation. So there it goes. And I can even change the color and do some other cool stuff with this. So let's have a look at flaw number 4. And again, we're halfway there. Please send any comments or questions to the chat box, and Prasanna will help me with questions and answers at the end of the session. Okay, this is one of my favorites. Too much detail in a schedule. So, what's wrong? We're doing some micromanagement here. You are a project manager or you're a planner for a project. You're not doing a checklist. You're not telling people to do exactly this. It's not like you're telling them to go to work, brush their teeth, take a shower. You're just telling them go to work. Very, very fine line here. But I have some customers that have schedules that are 8,000 tasks long, and they have everything in there. And it takes them a whole lot of time to manage that single schedule, and they just have that schedule, one schedule per project manager. So how to fix it and how not to micromanage here? Trust your team to do the work and have meetings to discuss the progress. This is not something that Microsoft Project will do for you, but this is something that a project manager should do, in my honest opinion. I'm not a project manager, I'm just a consultant. But let's have a look at what it looks like in Microsoft Project. So I'll just clean this up. I'll remove the timeline. And I'll go to flaw number 4. Okay, flaw number 4. I'm just going to show the entire schedule. So flaw number 4 is too much detail in the schedule. So in this schedule example, we're going to build a car. And on the 26th of November, this car will be ready. But we see that this is a summary task, so let's have a look at what's underneath. Okay, so clearly we are going to build an engine and we're going to build a chassis. Okay, building the engine will take me 13.5 days. Okay, so building the engine will take the engine framework and the engine cooling system. Okay, well, I'm a consultant, like I said. I'm not an engine builder. I had to look some of these things up in Wikipedia. So the cooling system is air blower, coolant hose, fan blade, a radiator. None of them are familiar with me, or I with them. So the radiator seems to be a thermostat and a pressure cap. And we have a pressure cap that needs to be attached, and there needs to be some pressure applied. And these tasks take 1 minute or 2 minutes. And this is just a guesstimate. So we're not clear on how much time it will take, but at least it's in the schedule, so people will do this. Okay. But this also means that you, as a project manager, needs to write progress on this. So with this schedule, you will be standing next to the engineer, and you're going to look over his shoulder, and you're going to tick off that scheduled task right at the moment that that happens. And if he's too late, then maybe he is 100% too late if he's just 1 minute late with applying the pressure. There's too much detail. So rather than having this huge schedule with all these subtasks, with all these subtasks numbers, just for fun and games, this number is the outline number. So that's something useful for a printout of your schedule, maybe. So rather than having this huge schedule with tasks of only a minute long, we'll have a look at a schedule where we're going to build the car, build the engine, and there's a framework and a cooling system, and the framework takes me 2 weeks, and the cooling system takes me 5 days. So what is an ideal duration or an ideal granularity here? Have a look at the complete duration of your schedule or your project. If a project takes you half a year, well, then maybe you want to have a meeting every 2 weeks to see what's happening. In the earliest example, well, maybe 20 things happened and you need to tick them all to be completed. Or in the ideal situation, you'll just have this one task and you'll say, this is 50% done. So this takes a lot of time out of your hands and you are communicating again. Communication in Microsoft Project is crucial in my opinion. You need to talk to each other. So no micromanaging. This is not a checklist. This is a schedule. So moving on to the last flaw, and the last flaw is about something called a baseline. So no way back, not using the baseline functionality. Some background here, this is the schedule, it has never changed. Nope. Okay, well, what's wrong here? We are all familiar with Murphy, I guess. If you're not familiar with Murphy, I want to have a visit because I would love to know your company. What's wrong? So no way to see what the original plan was compared to the current schedule. Because on schedules that take half a year or maybe 2 years, there's always something changing that schedule. And without a baseline, we have no easy way to see, are we on track? Are we within bandwidth of approval? Do we need more budget? Do we need less budget? No, of course not. How to fix it and how it should be done, set a baseline as soon as you get approval on budget. So let's have a final look at our schedule. I'll move to tasks. I'll move to Gantt chart and flaw number 5. So here we are. No way back, not using the baseline functionality. I have these are the flaws, and I have a situation with some advice. Okay, have a close look at both tasks. They look completely the same, right? Good. So when I am done with this schedule, I set it 100% complete. I'll do the same for this schedule. Nope. I won't do the same for this schedule. What's happening here? Auto scheduled. Okay, so let's have a look at the first one and the second one. There's no way to see if this schedule is on time, on budget, or that we had a huge delay. There is another view available to us, and this view is called the tracking Gantt. Now let's have a look at the tracking Gantt. On the top one, we see that there's a blue bar, and it's 100% complete, but there's no gray bar underneath it. On the second one, however, we see a gray bar, which is called the baseline bars, which are called baseline bars. And we see that we have a huge slipping of time. So in the first one, the project manager won't be uh, um, informed that he is behind schedule. In the second one, the project manager is informed that he might need to have a new approved budget. So let's say we're on this second schedule and the project manager sees this. And he sees this in time. And he looks at the schedule and he says, well, maybe I need a new budget. Maybe I need some more money, more time, more resources. And he goes to his manager and he shows to his manager the schedule and he tells him, we used to think it took us 3 weeks, but this is the new reality. There's something going wrong. We need to have more money, more resources, more time. Now, the project manager can hear two things. He can hear, we're going to cancel your project, or he can hear, here's an extra sack of money and people, go do the work. In the second case, we are just going to add a new baseline. We're going to go to project. Oh, we're going to select those tasks for this example. We're going to go to project. We're going to go to set baseline, and we're going to set the baseline for the selected task in my example. For your own examples, use the entire project to baseline. So I'll click on OK, and it gives me a warning. Are you sure you want to reset or overwrite the data of the baseline? I say, yes, I'm sure. And now there's a new reality. As a project manager, you never want to look back at the first approval when there are more recent approvals to look into. Of course, you want to know what your original approval was. Therefore, I would always advise you to set two baselines simultaneously. So as soon as you set baseline 1 or baseline 0, also set baseline 10. That way, you can always look back at baseline 1, baseline 10, baseline 0, and visually, this is baseline 0. So there's a number of interesting fields that you might want to look into, like, for instance, we have baseline start, and these are the same, of course, because we just recently set a baseline. And for this part, there's an NA not applicable because there wasn't a baseline set yet. So just let me return to the all flaws. This was the presentation demonstration part. Let's move to the final sheet I have here. I believe it's time for some questions. There are a number of reference links that might be of interest. I told you guys that I work for JSR in the Netherlands. If you are in the Netherlands and in need of some project server help or project online help, get in touch with us. We would love to help you. The Project Corner is the blog that I own, and there are a number of interesting posts that you might find interesting as well. There's a number of, I guess, 80 posts there already, and the series that form the base for this session can be found in the final bit.ly short link. I'll just move to the thank you to our sponsors slide and let Prasanna tell me what questions there might be.
All right. Thanks, Eric. That was a fantastic presentation. Andrea and myself on the chat are having a very good discussion here.
Okay.
So Andrea was asking about your flaw number 4. How about what about putting a checklist in the notes of a task?
Okay. Let's move to flaw number 4. This one?
Uh, uh, e- we need to give it a couple of seconds for it to catch
Hmm.
up. Yeah, too much detail in the schedule. That's the one. Yes.
Okay, and you're discussing having notes within scheduled tasks.
Right.
That sounds like a good solution if you're a project manager and you have a task, and the task may take a month. You might want to have some notification for the team members. Um, this might be something that you might want to look into, and this and this and this. Um, However, I do believe heavily on communicating. So yes, a note would be interesting to do. Let me just show you how that is done. Um, I will move into flaw number 4 for this. So when we're looking at the framework, the cooling system again, we might want to have people looking into the, what was it called, the thermostat, I guess. So right click on the task and select notes, and you'll get a blank sheet. Now, best practices here is set the date when you set the note and your initial, so everybody knows when that note was made and who made it. Um, so mind the cooling system as well as the pressure cap. Or maybe you want to do one pressure cap, two thermostat. Now there's a little note here, and you can have a printout of every note that's in print, and you'll have the option here, page setup or printer properties. I'm not very familiar which one of the two. I guess it's this one. You'll have the view and you'll have the print notes on a separate page option. So that way you'll have a clear view on the presentation of the notes. Yep.
All right. So there was one more question. What is the best way to check if a baseline is set or not into a formula?
Into a formula. Okay,
Yes.
cool. That's a nice one. Okay, so the best way to do this, in my opinion, and we might want to take this offline for more details, I will just put up my my credentials and my contact details again later on. So the best way to do this is have a look at the NA value. So baseline start, for instance. If it has an NA here, then you can log into that and you can look at is there a baseline or isn't there a baseline. Now I do remember a earlier session of Barbara, I guess it was. Um, she had an excellent formula for just this part. So you might want to look back into that session. It was one at the start. Prasanna, maybe you know the exact name of that presentation. Uh,
Yeah, it's called reporting in project client, session B005.
yes,
That
that
was
was the
at
one.
7 p.m. UTC time.
Yes, that was the one. That was right before I went to bed. So that is an excellent session. Barbara, thank you for doing that. And it has the exact formula that the person is looking into. Um, if you're
Right.
not finding it, please get in touch with me. I've just put up the introduction slide again with my contact details.
All right. I see some people trying to type, so I'm giving it a minute.
Okay,
Uh,
good.
so okay, Andre is saying yes, the NA value is good, but in the Nether Netherlands version, let me read it.
Yeah, in the Dutch version,
Version
what? Mm.
It's n dot v dot t.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because there is a multi-language thing going on here with Microsoft Project.
Right.
NA is just for the English speaking language, and I guess Barbara also told us the German version, which is NV, and I'm not going to speak German here, but NV is for German clients, and you might want to look into what it is for your organization or your version of Microsoft Project, and you can easily do this by just selecting the baseline start. And if there is a value that doesn't look like a date, then that is the value that you want to incorporate into your formula.
One of the things we used to do, Eric, also, if I may add, is we used to look at the date value, just like you said, and we used to compare it with a very high number, and
Ah,
you
yes.
use that as a formula. So that would get around us the whole multi-language scenario. So now we are looking at just numbers, right? So
Yes, very good. There is a specific number that is incorporated within the not applicable value. I believe there is a LinkedIn post also by Barbara which discusses this situation.
yep. So take a look at that. We have one more question.
Good.
Scott Nicholson is saying, Eric, thanks for your informative presentation.
Thank you,
Regarding
Scott.
flaw regarding flaw number 4, too much detail. What's your rule of thumb for suggested duration range of tasks in a delivery schedule?
Okay, so if I am correct, if you want to know a rule of thumb for the duration of tasks within a scheduled duration, um, well, there is a number of rule of thumbs going around different project, how do you say it, methodologies. I'm more inclined to look into the situation where we have a task or a schedule which has management looking into this every month. Well, if management is looking at the schedule every month, then you might want to have tasks not being bigger than 1 month, or maybe some of them, but not all of them, because if you have bigger tasks, then there's no progress report at the end of the month with your management. If you have a lot of smaller ones, people are not tending to look at that schedule because, yeah, there's too much detail there. Management just wants to know, is these two tasks, are they done? Yes, they're done. Okay, here's another sack of money. Something like that. I do believe there's a rule of thumb somewhere that tells us that you don't want tasks to be bigger than 30% of the total duration and not be smaller than 10% or 5%, something like that. Um, as a general rule, don't have tasks with a duration less than 1 day, because then you're just entering work and we're going into capacity as activity again. That's flaw number two.
All right. So let me see. Yeah, I think that's about it, Eric. You're
Okay,
getting some good comments in this chat session. So
very good. I will be looking into the chat session and maybe I will join you for another 15 minutes. After that, I need to move to a client and I won't be able to see the rest of the conference. Sad about that, but work, work, work. Prasanna, thank you for having me at the conference. And people, again, have a look at the great sponsors here.
all right. Thank you, Eric, and thanks everyone for participating in the session.
Yes, thank you very much.
All right. Bye.